Welcome to the Women Get Funded show, where we are dedicated to empowering women founders to shatter barriers and achieve exponential growth and funding for their business. Join us on this inspiring journey as we illuminate the path to unlocking opportunities and prosperity for women-led enterprises. With only 2% of venture funding going to women-led businesses and a mere 3% of women-led companies crossing the $1 million threshold, these startling statistics highlight the need for change. I am Kofo Salman, 5-time founder, impact investor, creator of the Force for Good business system, and your host on this transformative journey. In each episode, you'll meet a trailblazing woman leader. You will meet venture capitalists, CEOs, successful founders, and experts in scaling business growth. Our purpose is clear. We are here to open doors and provide women founders with invaluable access to advisors, investors, and visionary leaders who share our commitment to creating a better world through women-led business at #WomenGetFunded. We see a future where tomorrow's Amazons, Mercks, Microsofts, and Home Depots are born right here, led by women. They represent the future face of business, and we're here to make it happen. I believe that women-led business is the most powerful, transformative force of our time. Together, we make the world better through business. Are you in? Welcome to Women Get Funded show. We're dedicated to empowering women founders to shatter barriers in growth and funding for their businesses. Thank you for joining us today as we illuminate the path to unlocking opportunities and prosperity for women-led enterprises. Today, we have a very special guest for you. We're honored to host Julia Pimsleur, a powerhouse in the world of female entrepreneurship. Julia's mission: empowering 1 million women to hit $1 million in revenue, is more than a goal, it's a movement. Already, Julia has made a significant impact, with 1.4 million women benefiting from her extensive array of online programs, workshops, and enlightening literature, including her 2 acclaimed books, Million Dollar Women, which I have right here, and Go Big Now. Julia and her team have helped thousands of women double their revenues. In fact, 15% of their grads have reached $1 million or more, which is 5 times the national average of 2%. That's so awesome. And central to Julia's drive is her personal journey of overcoming challenges and launching her first venture, Little Pim. With a beginning of $30,000 investment, she navigated the daunting world of venture capital, an experience she candidly shares in her book, Million Dollar Women. And this journey wasn't just about financial growth. It was about building a multi-million-dollar VC-backed entity that she eventually sold to a major partner. So she is such an example for us all. This experience ignited her passion for assisting other women to go big, leading in her to start Million Dollar Women in 2016. So her mantra: you can take the sale out of scale. We can't take the sale out of scale, underscores her 2024 focus. And so she has done so many great things to support women founders. Join us as we dive into Julia Pimsleur's inspiring story and explore her transformative strategies and dedication to closing the revenue gap for women entrepreneurs worldwide. So welcome, Julia. We're so happy that you could be here.
Thank you. I'm so excited for this conversation. And I love your mission of women making the world better through business. You're doing fantastic work to help women get funded and scale up. So can't wait to compare notes and share whatever I can about what we're up to.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, Julia, as you know, I like to start my conversations shining the light on a woman author or two, and making sure that we let the word out about women and leadership. So what's and it doesn't have to be a leadership book, it could be anything, but what's one book written by a woman that has significantly influenced your life?
Well, I would not have written Million Dollar Women, my first book, if I had not read a book by another woman who everyone knows, I think,
Yeah.
Brené Brown. And if you don't know her, go find one of her books. But this is the one that had the biggest impact on me, called Daring Greatly. And in this book, she is a sociologist. She teaches in Texas. She does research on kind of what limiting beliefs hold people back, and especially around shame and kind of not wanting to shine your light. And when she researched what women were the most afraid of, it was so fascinating and it really resonated with me. First, I'll tell you what men were the most afraid of, because that's actually scarier. What men were the most afraid of was being perceived as too female. So that's very scary. Yes, men were afraid of, how like in bullies will say like, "Oh, you're a wussy," or things like that. If you think about it, a lot of critiques of men are
Yeah.
like, "You're not masculine enough."
Mhm.
So her research, thousands of men, they were afraid of being perceived as feminine. So that's already depressing enough. But then she researched talking to thousands of women, and their greatest fear was not being enough,
Uh,
not thin enough, not smart enough, not pretty enough, not self sacrificing enough. All the not enoughs that we're socialized with as young women and then spend our entire adult years trying to unlearn. And just reading that made me realize, oh, I'm doing that right now, because I built this seven-figure company, Little Pim. I'm outraged that so few women get access to the coaching and the mentorship and the capital that they need to do the same thing. And
yes.
I want to write a book on it. But then immediately after that, the thought came up, well, who am I to write a book? I'm not Sarah Blakely. I'm not famous. I'm not super, super rich. Like, maybe someday I would deserve to write a book. And when I read Daring Greatly, I was like, oh, I'm doing that thing of I'm not enough. And I was like, screw it. I'm writing the book. And the rest is history.
I love that. And, I think it's so important for us all to just own where we are. And, it's profound to
And to
think of.
override that socialization, right? Because sometimes
Exactly.
every cell in your body is going, don't do it. But you also really want to put something out there. And we've got to train ourselves to listen to that second voice, not the first one. Also, if you indulge me in one more, is
Yes, yes,
shout out,
yes, please.
yeah, to Brittany Hodak. So she is the author of Creating Superfans.
Mhm.
And I actually profiled her in Million Dollar Women. So it all comes full circle. She and her business partner at the time had a company called Zine, but now she's become an expert and a keynote speaker on how you turn your sort of customers into raving fans. And
Oh,
every business person needs that, right?
yes.
It's how to tell your story in a way that it not only excites people to work with you, but really resonates with your customer in a deep emotional way.
Mhm.
And I just think this is a brilliant book, full of examples, easy to read, lots of fun. So check this out if you're looking for a way to grow your company.
That's wonderful. And I can promise you that it will be, I'll be checking that out on Amazon later today because I
Oh,
can.
awesome. And throw it in the show notes. Throw it in the show notes. We'll give Brittany some love. Also a young mom. I like to
Oh,
help the working mom entrepreneurs. You and I both understand what that's like. I know you have a stepdaughter you're very devoted to, and
mhm.
it's
Yes.
extra hard when you're being a mom and an entrepreneur.
And we can do it, right? We can do it. It's possible. And when we, I've had two, and I know you have a couple,
I
right?
do too. Yes, I have two boys who are 16 and 19, and I
Oh,
grew I grew all my businesses with them, as
yes.
children. So can be done, but definitely, I again, extra shout out to the working mom entrepreneurs.
Exactly. So maybe you could tell a little bit more about your journey from Little Pim to Million Dollar Women, and, sort of how you got to where you are today.
Well, I was an unlikely entrepreneur, to be honest, Coco. My parents were academics, and I
Yes.
didn't grow up seeing businesses or anything like that. But when I had my first child, my son Emmett, when he was a baby, I knew right away I wanted him to learn French because I had grown up bilingual in French and English. My father, Paul Pimsleur, created this language teaching method called the Pimsleur method that some people might
Yes.
have heard of. And as a result of that, we were in France when I was a child. So from age 6 to 8, I lived in Paris, went to French public school, and became bilingual without even really having to learn. It just was by immersion. So that was just one of the best gifts my parents ever gave me. It led to scholarships and work opportunities and a love of France. And I knew that was something I wanted my children to have,
Yes.
was a second language. But in America, it's really just the 1% who have access to that because
Mhm.
most people have to wait until, their kids in 5th grade to get
Right.
language teaching. And by then it's too late. All the studies have shown your neurons are hardwired for English. You have a terrible accent. It's hard. So I went out looking for some great program for little kids to learn a second language and was shocked to find there was just nothing on the market to help kids learn at the age they learn best, which is 0 to 6 for a second language. So I took my filmmaking background. I had been a film major in college and went to grad school for film, and my love of language teaching and learning, and my love of being a mom, and combined those into creating the first language teaching method for young children, which we called Little Pim. So Pim came from my last name, Pimsleur, Pim. And we created a panda bear character who was the language teacher. So almost like if Curious George or Elmo could teach your child a second language. And then we dubbed it into 13 languages. And it was able to be seen by little kids on any screen, any size, anywhere, from iPhone to iPad to computer. So that allowed us to scale quite quickly. And
Yeah.
within the first few years, we got up to about 400,000 in revenues. And that was
Great.
really exciting. But you said, how did I get here? I got here through a lot of belly flops and face plants. And so that was like the success part. We launched it was DVDs at the time. It later turned into digital product, of course, but we had DVDs, plush pandas, cute little, stuffed animals, flashcards. It was like a whole line of products. Got to 400,000, had a lot of people going, wow, this is great. This is amazing. Had a little team, but I was exhausted, like
Yeah.
completely burned out, exhausted. By now, I had 2 little kids at home, my 2 little boys who were 3 and 6. My ex-husband was not on Wall Street. We live in New York, but he was not like working in finance. He was working in a nonprofit. So I was one of the chief breadwinners. And
Yeah.
I was just working round the clock. And worse, I didn't really see how it was going to lead to success. I
Mhm.
felt very stuck at this 400,000. And of
Mhm.
course, I had a team. We were making product. It's not like I was paying myself 400,000. I was probably paying
Of
myself
course. Yeah.
70,000 or something, which in New York doesn't go that far, as you know. So I just hit this wall where I was like, well, you know what? Maybe I'm not cut out for this. Like my parents were academics. Again, that whole not enoughness crept
Yeah.
back in or crept in. And I was like, maybe I'm just not cut out to be a CEO, right? Who am I? I'm a creative person. Who was I to think I could like run this big successful business? But at the same time, and I wonder if women listening can relate, I still felt like I know I'm the right person to do this.
Yeah.
Who else has this combination of love of language learning, the multimedia, and parent? But I just didn't have the business skill. And that's where my lawyer, who was part of an entrepreneurs organization, intervened and said, hey, because I confided in him, like, maybe I should just shut this thing down. Like, maybe this just isn't working. And he was like, well, why don't you try this program to help entrepreneurs scale up to 1 million? And it was really one of these things where I was like, well, what do I have to lose? Like, either I'll find out I don't have what it takes and I'll shut it down, or I'll learn what all these other entrepreneurs seem to know who are running the successful 7 and 8 figure businesses. And happily, that is what happened. I invested my kind of last, $8,000 into this program on credit, probably multiple credit cards, and took that leap of faith, invested in myself, which is something I later realized is a superpower because
Yes.
not all women do invest in themselves, but most of the successful ones have and do and
Yes.
still do. So invested in myself, took the program, and wound up learning what I needed to do to get that company to 1 million. And within a year, we were at 7 figures. We were able to raise 6 million in venture capital, not all at once, but I'm sure we'll get into that later, given the nature of the podcast. And we ultimately built a multi-million-dollar company where I was able to hire people away from Disney, had an incredible board, great backers, and ultimately sold it to our largest partner.
I just love your story on so many levels. And it's so well articulated in your book, Million Dollar Women. So I encourage everybody to buy it. But what I love, so many things, but one thing is you took the best of yourself, your passions, your interests, what you knew, right? As you said, you don't have to you don't have to go to business school necessarily. Um, and whoever you are, if you have a passion and that drive, I have a conviction that if you are born a founder, if you're born an entrepreneur, you really just can't help yourself, right?
So true. And if there's anything else you want to do that.
That's true.
But if it's like you just have to do this thing, then you're a founder.
Exactly.
Because sometimes meet people have business ideas and they're like, "Oh, I want to do it. I'm not sure." And in my mind, I'm going, yeah, you're not going to do it
You're
because
not going to do it. 'Cause
founders are like, I have to do it. Right. Yes.
exactly, exactly, and then you figure out and I love that you figured it out through your network. You found ways and paths and, so often what we do is we try to do everything on our own, and then we make ourselves wrong and say we're not enough,
Yeah. We're
right?
burned out.
We're burned out, right? And I also loved how your moment of sort of crossroads was a moment of where you had to have a breakthrough, which could have looked to you like a moment to tell you to stop. It could have looked like, okay, the universe is telling me to go get a job,
Hey,
right?
I got my resume together. Trust me. I could have gone that road very easily. But don't you
right?
think, Coco, there's a paradox in being an entrepreneur that you have to have sort of the confidence and the ego, I'll say it, right? To believe like I can pull this off. But then you also have to have the humility to know what are the parts I'm not good at and where
Yes.
do I have to ask for help? Because
Yes.
nobody can do all the things you need to do
No.
as an entrepreneur. No one's a visionary and an operator and amazing at managing people and can go raise money. Like you're going to have to fill in those gaps. And that's
Exactly.
what I see now as my mission at Million Dollar Women is to help these really smart, really driven, amazing women who've started these companies to
Yeah.
just fill in the gap, right?
Yeah. It's exactly right. So I want to dig in a little more about your funding journey and understand, and again, a lot of our founders are trying to get funded or, sort of stumbling now because they got a little bit of money, but now, especially these days, it's
Oh,
been
the
harder,
environment has been really tough out there.
really
Yes.
tough, right? And so just to share your experience and what you went through and what you think are the lessons learned that would be applicable to our listeners.
Yes. Well, that was definitely one of the hardest parts of building my business was
Oh,
raising that money. And in Million Dollar Women, I share the entire journey, including lots of belly flops and face plants. So if anyone listening is feeling like this is so hard, the book might kind of give you that lift you might need of there could be a light at the end of the tunnel. But I would say the main thing that got me through that was thinking of fundraising more like friend raising. Because if you approach every single meeting, like, are they going to say yes? Or are they going to say no? Is this my savior? Right? Then it's going to be very challenging to get through the marathon that is fundraising. But
yeah.
if you look at it as I'm building relationships, right? Then every meeting could lead to a positive outcome. And
Yes.
I like to tell the story of an investor I met with early in my fundraising days who turned out to not be a fit. Like my Little Pim language teaching program just didn't fall in his investing thesis, but he liked what I was doing. Maybe he was raising his kids bilingual. I can't quite remember, but it resonated with him personally. And for years, he would respond to every group email I sent out, cheer me on, make suggestions. So you really can make friends through this process. Very
Yeah.
few people are going to write that check, but a lot
Right.
of people could be your ambassador or someone who introduces you to someone for a distribution opportunity. So that's a key piece of it, I think. And then having your support team at work and at home and other entrepreneurs. I think you really need three support circles when you're fundraising. You
Mhm.
need a team to get the job done because
Yes.
what people often don't talk about is that when you're out fundraising, your revenues can often nosedive
Yeah.
and could tend to be the chief rainmaker for your company. And you're taking all that energy and putting it into meetings with potential investors. So you got to make sure you have that team that can keep
Yes.
the company going and cheerlead you, because it's very tough psychologically, as we know, to get all those no's. The second thing you need is the support of your family and friends. Have to be there because, again, you're going to be put under a lot of duress, have to cancel things last minute, fly to go meet investors. I mentioned that paradox earlier of like, you have to have a healthy ego to start a company, but then the humility to know what you don't know. It's the same in fundraising. You have this healthy ego that you have a company you believe in and you're all excited. But as soon as you start fundraising, the investors determine everything. Like,
Yeah.
they want to meet you at 7 a.m., you meet at 7 a.m. I remember taking a red-eye flight and then getting on a train, directly on a train, to go up to Connecticut, a 3-hour train ride to meet with this guy. And he almost didn't invest. And part of why I'm successful at fundraising is that I know it's a dance and I know how the dance is supposed to be danced. And if they don't do their part, I don't let them off the hook. So
Yeah.
I was in my mind like, dude, I took an overnight flight and a 3-hour train to meet you. No, this is not going to end in a no. And the no turned into a yes, because I was like, I danced my part. You're going to need to dance your part. So the second thing is the support of family and friends. And then the third thing is fellow entrepreneurs who are raising money or who are just a little bit ahead of you. I think that is essential to have those entrepreneurial, in my case, entrepreneurial sisters. I really value, the women's community. But of course, whoever lifts you up, could be men, non-binary people, whoever that is. Just for me, I've always drawn my support from amazing entrepreneurial women.
Well, and I thank you for sharing the details of that experience. And I one of the things I loved about the vulnerability you show in the book is you talk about like the first time somebody asked you, I think it was about
My
gross
margin,
profit.
my
Gross
growth
profit.
margins. Like, can I get to Google that, please?
Just a second, right? And so there's a lot that it takes, right? You have to learn to speak their language. You have to know what they're looking for. And you don't have to figure it out all on your own, right? There's
You don't have
plenty.
to be fluent. You just have to be conversational. I often use the language teaching metaphors since I was running a language teaching company, right? It's like, oh, I better get conversational in VC.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So wherever you can go, right? So your book is a great place to go. I know you
Yeah, I
serve your,
devoted an entire chapter to those terms because I
yes,
spent 9 months preparing to fundraise at the time. This was pre all the learning you could get on YouTube and women sharing their journeys like I am now. I had very few resources. So I spent 9 months researching. And so a lot of that got condensed down into this one chapter. In fact, some of the books I drew from are probably right here on my shelf. Brad Feld's Venture Deals. There's some great books about raising capital, but they're dense and you've got to wade through them.
you
So
do.
yeah, my book is a little bit of a cheat sheet to getting started for raising capital.
Which is good, right? Because it gives you a place to begin, and then you can start to build some traction. One of the things that I love about what you're doing today with Million Dollar Women is you're helping women grow to that first big milestone, right? That $1 million milestone,
Revenue.
right? And when I believe that as long as you have a business with um, a big enough market, right? Because that's important to our investors, right? It needs to be a big market. You have that and you have more and more traction growing, eventually you're going to be fundable, right? So like, and it's harder. It's much harder to grow, to get funded really early, pre-seed and
They want to
seed.
see those revenues. They definitely want to see those revenues. I've
No,
heard how we raised our first million. Our seed round was, we had almost 1 million in revenues. And so we were very attractive to funders.
exactly, exactly. So I love now to just segue a little bit now to what you're doing now, which is around $1 million women. And one of the things, I love good marketing. I love good messaging. And it's like when it's beautifully baked, you just sort of sit in awe. And I love how your specific market, right? Women founders and their need to overcome that $1 million threshold. It's just so clear. I wonder, so Was this when you started Million Dollar Women? Did you know that this was your message from the beginning? Did you know this was your market? Did you know this was your message? Was it immediate or was something you came to over time? Can you share about how you created that product market? But
Yes, of course. It evolved out of teaching workshops because once I hit the seven figures, I joined that very entrepreneurs organization that had helped me get there. Remember the program I put my last $8,000 into, which was probably one of my best investments. So I got to 1 million, I raised the venture capital, and then I had a whole new problem, Coco, which is that all of the women just disappeared from the room like magic.
yes,
You know, and
yes,
every entrepreneur gathering I went to was just all men and some spouses and maybe like one other woman like me who somehow had broken this $1 million barrier. And I got very interested in, well, where did everybody go? And did the research and found out that, wow, fewer than 3% of women ever get to 1 million. And that's why I'm not seeing any of them. So I had been a gender studies minor in college, called women's studies at the time. I'm sure it'd be called gender studies now. Film major, women's studies minor. I'll never forget my mother saying, "What are you going to do with that?" Like, make my entire career out of it. She's a huge supporter now, but I like to tease her about that. So, as a women's studies minor, and I have always been very passionate about how do we advance women. And so I thought, well, if this is such a big problem, why don't I just start teaching women in my conference room? So on weekends, with the two little boys, 3 and 6 at home, and running the multi-million dollar business and the board and the VCs breathing down my neck now, I was like, this is what I'm doing for me because I want to make this impact. And I don't want to be alone. I want more women with me
yeah,
on this
yeah.
journey, right? It's lonely when
It's
there's
very lonely.
very lonely. We're now just starting to hear about the loneliness epidemic, right? And loneliness at work. But boy, any successful woman entrepreneur has lived that to the max already. So I was teaching maybe 10, 15 women at a time in my conference room on weekends at Little Pim, what we like to call the VC conference room, because when we raised venture capital, we took over the office next to ours and broke through like our VC conference room. And they would come in. I would teach them how to raise capital. We bring in guest speakers. I have some people who were guest speakers who are now very high up at some of the top VC firms. It was like really early days. No one was talking about this. I mean, we're talking 10 years ago. And I did that for a couple of years and loved it. And 75 women graduated and they raised a collective 15 million,
Well,
including Natalie Mackey from Winky Lux, which
oh,
is now a very successful beauty brand distributed across the US and raised millions and is up to about 20 million in revenue annually. So we had some great success stories, but back to the whole exhaustion theme. Now I was like really mega exhausted again. And I thought, okay, rather than teaching 15 women at a time in my conference room, why don't I write a book?
yeah.
So set out to write the book with a little help from Darren Granley, right? Like, yes, you can write this book even though you think you shouldn't. With the editor, I remember the meeting. I was sitting in Simon and Schuster with my editor, Priscilla, and we said, well, what should we call it? And I had the idea of calling it Women Making Millions because I wanted more women to be making millions.
Mhm.
And then we kept fine tuning it and we got to this, $1 million women. And I'll never
Mhm.
forget what she said. She said, I like it. It's catchy. But what if women think that's the wives of rich men being driven around in SUVs? Like $1 million women with like his credit card. And I
Oh,
was like, wow, this is so sad that we so rarely see those three words in the same sentence
yes,
that we have
yes,
to wonder, will people even get it?
yes,
And that's
yes,
when I was like, no, then that's our title because
yes.
that's provocative, right? If you're like,
Yes.
dollar women, what's that? Then that better be the title.
I love it. I love it. And so it's really driven you from there. And I, having that clarity of focus now, it just seems to be carrying you
Well,
forward.
$1 million is a placeholder for a set of dreams for most people.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Even if they don't literally want to get to 1 million, we have a lot of women in our community who are like, you know what? If I could be making 500,000, that would set me up. I could buy my house. I can take these vacations I want to take. I can be on the board of my local nonprofit and donate money every year. And we're thrilled to get them to that goal. So for us,
Yes.
$1 million it's a placeholder for a set of dreams.
I love that. It is so important. I think, I'm so glad you mentioned that because everybody has a different idea of what success or prosperity or, a vision and scale, whatever, whatever it is, the impact you want to build, it can all be different. And I like how you talk about it as a placeholder for your dreams. That's very
Like we
powerful.
both also coach women in how to build successful businesses, not just businesses. So meaning good profit margins,
Yes.
scalability. And, I always I didn't make this up, but I like to repeat it that revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is, well, they usually say king, but I like to say
King, queen.
queen. Revenue is vanity, cash is margins are sanity, and cash is queen. And so you could have $1 million business where you have very low margins.
Oh,
And
yeah.
paying yourself 100,000, you could have a $600,000 business with great margins, and you're paying yourself 400,000. So most people would rather have the latter, which is why we take $1 million as just kind of a placeholder.
Totally. And it's absolutely true. Just that revenue line, um, it doesn't really mean anything, but
It's vanity. It's vanity. And having been in that male entrepreneurs organization for 7 years, and I served on
yes.
the board and I chaired their program to help other people get to 1 million. So for a couple of years, I helped a few hundred men and women get to 1 million, which is partly how I became
Right.
an expert in getting people to a
Are
million.
you
But I'll tell you, when it's a bunch of men in a room, they're throwing around those revenue numbers. It's like a lot of 10 million, 20 million, and you don't know what those profits are like.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. It's interesting, Julia. I've been a part of that same organization and have taken a lot from it, but it is true that you have to find the feminine balance of it. You have to look in other corners. You can gather a lot of wisdom from those communities, but it doesn't necessarily fully fit with all of what we need as women entrepreneurs. We need
And
another
sometimes
outlet.
we have to create our own community, which is what I
Which
did. I took the best of what I had there and I launched
great.
$1 Million Women, in part because that organization and many others like it have a revenue minimum, and it's usually about 1 million. So
Mhm.
just do the math. If only 2 to 3% of women are making 1 million, of course they're not getting into those
Yeah,
organizations either. And
yeah,
who's helping them to get there? And that's what I saw as the big opportunity, is who's talking about what I like to call the invisible majority. So to
yeah.
me, the invisible majority is the 98% of women who are not at 1 million. And by the way, some of them not even raising angel or venture either, because their
No,
business may not be a fit for that. And
right.
that's really where we're focused at $1 Million Women. I call them the engines of the economy, which is the women who are consultants and coaches and have product companies. And, they might be making 200,000, 500,000, 1 million, but they're overlooked by a lot of these great organizations and even grants.
Yes, yes. So, tell us more about your approach to working with women founders and what are some of the tips or part of your formula? Give us a little glimpse of your formula for our listeners, for somebody who might be struggling to grow. And what would you say to them, or what would be a little bit of your program?
Well, we believe you can start from anywhere and build a multi-million dollar business. You don't have to even have gone to college. You certainly don't have to have gone to business school, which is something a lot of us have to get over. Like, oh, I didn't go to business school. Well, I definitely didn't go to business school. Building Little Pim was my business school. Then we like to teach what we call the 4 pillars of scaling, which
Mm.
are mindset, strategy, money, and team. If you can get those 4 things right, mindset, strategy, money, and team, you can
Mhm.
absolutely build a $1 million business and then some. And we actually put that into our proprietary scaling framework, because for 8 years we've been helping women get to 1 million, as you had said in my intro. So 15% of our women are getting there using this scaling framework that we teach. And part of why we put it into this little, bite-sized scaling framework is I still remember when I wanted to get to 1 million, feeling so overwhelmed by all the things I had to get right. I have to be
Yes.
a manager. I have to learn how to raise money. I have to understand the numbers. I have to be good at marketing. It just seems like so much. So we have found that reminding women, like, no, it's just these 4 things. Like, if you
Right.
can get these 4 things right, we're going to get you there, has been very comforting and made that path seem easier to get on for a lot of women.
That's great. Could you just maybe spend 30 seconds on each of the four. Just tell us a little bit more about that. So um, everyone listening might have a little breakthrough in all four areas.
Sure. Well, first we wanted to deliver all of this in a method that was women friendly. So
Yes.
all of the programs I took, I would have to leave my kids, leave my business, go to, several day workshops, and that's just not women friendly, especially when you have young children. So
Yes.
ours are all delivered via the phone, via the computer. Some women are taking our programs like while picking up their kid for karate. They've got 5 minutes and they can like watch on their phone like how to calculate their profit margin. So that's the first thing, is that it's something you do alongside your business, not instead of your business. The mindset that we start with, every single person coming into the program has limiting beliefs about what they can do with their business. If they didn't, they would already be there. I'm a trained mindset coach, and we always get what we think. Whatever you think over
Yes.
and over again becomes a belief. And all beliefs have either a positive or a negative emotion attached to them. And if you have a belief with a positive emotion attached, like I mentioned, oh, fundraising is friend raising. This is super fun. Then you take a lot of action. And if you take a lot
Yes.
of action, you tend to get good results. But if you have a belief with a negative emotion attached to it, like I'm not good at the numbers side. We hear that a lot from women. And look, I'm a former creative. I get it. I started out not good at the numbers at all. Then you have this negative idea of like, oh, I'm not good at this. And then you take less action and then you get those results, right? Maybe you're not asking someone to sit you down and help you understand your P&L. Maybe you're not taking the online course to figure out how do I present my numbers for this fundraising opportunity. And we call that T-Bear, T-B-E-A-R. That's our proprietary method for understanding how to shift your limiting beliefs. The T is thought, the B is beliefs, the E is emotions, the A is action, and the R is result. So
Mm.
whenever you have a result you don't like, how do you go all the way back to the thought, change the thought, and then get a whole new change?
Yes.
That's one of the things we teach in the mindset portion of our course. We say, eliminate the judgment. Don't judge yourself for whatever you do or don't have, but just look at it like, okay, well, I sometimes have these thoughts like, my parents weren't entrepreneurs, so how could I possibly build a multi-million-dollar business? Or I wasn't good at math, so how could I possibly do that? So we clear those beliefs and help them get new beliefs so that they're fired up, ready to go. And then we can start teaching the business skills. We don't
Yes.
start trying to pile business skills on top of limiting beliefs and negative self-talk and all that. It wouldn't work.
That is so important. I'm so glad you mentioned it. And I've also heard you say, and this is one I learned from you. I don't know if it was on a call or if it was in your book, but just to add I don't know about profit margins yet.
That's right. Thank you. That's a great hack, right? Just adding yet to the end of any sentence.
Yes.
So different.
Yes.
Yes. And I love the mindset part. I had an amazing mindset coach. I want to honor her, Gina Malacone Long, who taught me so many things. I also would not have written the book without that work with her. And
Mhm.
when I became a coach, she suggested I get trained in NLP, neuro
Mhm.
linguistic programming, which she is trained in, often used in sales. So I
Mhm.
also my sales teaching, and it's a rapid change psychology method. Because look, I've done years of therapy and I love therapy, but it doesn't always make that light bulb go off. Whereas NLP is like you can just get in, target that limiting belief, eliminate it, replace it with a positive one, and start getting new results. And I just love that efficiency. So that's the mindset. I won't spend as long on each one because I know we have limited time, but I'm always very excited about the mindset. The second one is the strategy. Most women don't have a strategy. No one's
Yes.
worked that down with them. They're just working super hard, like getting up every day, doing the same thing they did yesterday. That usually
Yes.
is not what's going to get you there, right? Especially if if you're listening, if you've been in business 2 years, 5 years, 8 years, and you're not yet where you want to be, most likely you need a new strategy after
Yes.
the mindset work. So for that piece, I help them. We have amazing tools. I have on my board the founder of EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization, Vern Harnish. He lets us use some of his tools for that strategy planning. So that's a really robust part of the program. And we have mentors who also help them who are in their industry. So it's very kind of wraparound. And then the third piece is the money, because
Yeah.
most people are not doing a good enough job of tracking the money, making sure that they have the great sales skills. So we spend a whole unit on the money, both how to manage the money you do have and then where to get the growth capital. Which,
Yes.
to be honest, is very rarely angel and venture. I love that you're helping women with that, and I'm going to send you lots of people. But I made a choice early on that I want to really be focused on, again, the invisible majority, most of the women who are not ready for angel and venture. So we help them get grants, bank loans, credit cards, whatever alternative capital. And if they need angel or venture, we send them to amazing partners like you. And then the last piece is the team, because once you have all that dialed in, no one gets to $1 million on their own.
No.
Right. And most women start their business because they're really good at something, but then they get stuck in the like, I'm doing it all, and they don't delegate enough. They don't outsource. So we really focus on that in the last part so that they can build the team, get those high revenue numbers, and enjoy their life. That's super important.
Yeah. No, that's great. So mindset, strategy, money, and team.
Yeah.
So how can founders learn more about this process and the programs you offer?
Everything's on our website at millionwomen.com. So if you just go to programs on millionwomen.com, you mentioned, Coco, that we have a new initiative that we're very focused on sales. So we always run our core program we've been running for 8 years that helps women with those 4 things we just talked about. But we noticed that most women don't have sales training, and they
Yeah.
want to grow their business. They want to make more money, but without sales training, that's very hard. You cannot take the sale out of scale. So we are focused on the sale part, and we've launched a program called 50K in 21 days, where in 3 weeks, 21 days, we teach women how to make another $50,000. We're honored to have some people from your team take it. It's not
Yes.
just for entrepreneurs. And I will tell you that is such a gift also, Coco, for the entrepreneurs to be in a program with women working for entrepreneurs, because we sometimes forget you can find amazing people to help you. You don't have to do it all on your own. You don't have to be the only salesperson. And so we've graduated over 100 women already, and we have a
Right.
money back guarantee. So everyone's making more money because it's guaranteed, and having a lot of fun just getting those skills out there so more women can scale up quickly and then move on to maybe raise that capital or get to the $1 million mark.
That's wonderful. And then I know you also have a sort of a higher level accelerator. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the journey in our community is you could start out in our network, which is just for any woman at any revenue level with a business. That's very affordable, $99 a month. And then you would graduate into either the sales program or the accelerator program. That's the one that teaches the mindset, strategy, money, and team. And then if you do, not if, when you get to 1 million, the women who have gotten to 1 million and beyond, we have a mastermind gold program, which
Oh,
is a smaller mastermind that I lead in a very hands-on way and bring in a lot of guest speakers and women who have built and sold their businesses. And that's where we have women who are going from 1 to 5 million.
that is so exciting. And I think that's a wonderful path that you've designed. When you talk about having a growth strategy, your second pillar, um, I can hear it. So I hope our founders can hear it. You are living your methodology, right?
And
You
you
have
something important, Coco, which is that we see this as creating a new ecosystem. I saw that
yes,
language on your website, and that really resonates with me because I think you and I both agree we inherited an ecosystem that is
yes,
very well dominated, and there's
yes,
things about it that don't work for us as women, certainly as women who are mothers. Not everyone's a mother, but if you are, there's added challenges. And so I am excited about having people like you. And we also have 10 partners at $1 Million Women who are all focused on creating a new ecosystem that
yeah.
works so much better for women, where we help women succeed and then they come back and invest in the next generation and mentor people.
I love it. I love it. And, you know, I also believe, and I, you know, when you think about sitting in these rooms where you might be the only one in or two or three of 100 men, right? Like you might be at these events where you could be in a group that's you're the only woman in the group. It's hard to remember or even know what the sound of women's wisdom even looks and smells like. You know, it's just hard to hear it. It's the noise is so loud to
Sometimes
hear.
it's not validated if it does.
Yes, right.
Raise your hand and say something.
Right.
Sometimes
And
it's like, oh no, we're not doing that.
right. And so it's like I feel like these ecosystems that we're mutually building, it, we can go, oh yeah, that's what women's wisdom sounds like. What's what a woman leader sounds like.
Yeah.
That's what she does. That's how I resonate with that. I can now go and do that too. I see that that's, okay. And it's comfortable for me. So
I'm such a
grateful.
beacon for this, and I'm so grateful for what you're building through this podcast, through A Force for Good, your book, the ecosystem you're creating. So I'm excited for other ways we can work together. And I don't know if this resonates with you, but for me, a lot of it is about how can we help women show up as their full selves?
Yes.
My generation, I'm in my 50s, there was a lot of like, let me pretend I'm like the guy. And
Totally.
if I have one wish for the next generation of women entrepreneurs, it's like that you don't have to dance that dance, that you can just show up and be like, oh, it was really hard to leave my 3-year-old, at daycare today. She was crying. And that wouldn't like eliminate you from getting funding.
Exactly. Exactly. So what would be a last sort of kernel of wisdom that you would offer to our women founders out there?
My big advice to women entrepreneurs is work on mindset first. Because if you just try to run out and get a bunch of business skills, you're trying to, fry something in a nonstick pan and it's going to just slide off. Like
I love it.
and it just slides right off, right? Because you and I know this. Women are so smart and
Yeah.
so capable and so creative. So
Yeah.
why are we still stuck at 2 to 3% getting to 1 million? And
Yeah.
Coco, those numbers have not changed since
They haven't.
8 years ago. Yeah, which
Yeah.
is devastating to me and makes me work even harder and get up even earlier every day to do this work. But it's not because we're not capable. It's because we've had a lot of socialization that we need to undo.
Yeah.
And that the broad term for that is mindset work. So I would not be where I was if I didn't read the books, go to the workshop, do the therapy, hire the coaches. So try to figure out what's holding you back and then work on that. Because truthfully, the business stuff, anybody listening, have you not met a successful business person and thought, I think I'm smarter than that person? It's not about the smarts. It's about the clearing the things that hold us back so we can just learn the skills and go for it.
Exactly. Oh, thank you. I just love that message and mindset, put mindset first. Thank you, Julia, for joining us today on the Women Get Funded show. Thank you for illuminating the path to unlocking opportunities for growth and prosperity for women-led entrepreneurs and enterprises. The world is made better by women-led business. Go make the world a better place. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Are you ready to take the next big step in planning, propelling, and funding the exponential growth in your high-impact business? Welcome to the Force for Good Business Accelerator. The next step is the Force for Good Business Accelerator. At A Force for Good, we know that growth is a puzzle you can solve. You too can cross the chasm of scaling and funding at www.aforceforgood.biz/accelerator. Designed for women founders and their teams, this virtual experience is your opportunity to immerse yourself in a transformative process that will create a flywheel effect for your entire company. First, you'll build and implement a growth plan. This plan will be designed to help you accelerate product market fit and fine-tune a go-to-market strategy that produces more prospects, more customers, more traction, more growth. Next, you will explore all the many options for funding your business, from angel investors to venture, crowdfunding, grants to loans. We will help you explore every option available to ensure you always have the fuel to keep growing. Along the way, you will elevate as a transformative leader, discovering clarity, confidence, and wisdom with each step along the journey. We will guide you every step of the way, and with options for additional support available to help you grow more quickly, we help you believe in our mantra that growth is a puzzle you can solve. Learn more about the Force for Good Virtual Business Accelerator today at www.aforceforgood.biz/accelerator. That's right, www.aforceforgood.biz/accelerator.